Steven asked to do Immigrant Song, which the band kicked into. And Steven did not know the words.
Hey, this is Party Like a Rockstar podcast, and I'm your host, Joel. Today's episode is brought to you by Misha's Kind Foods. They're an LA-based small business making the world's finest non-dairy cheese on the market today. They're lactose-free, paleo, keto, kosher, Parev, and 100% vegan. If you like what you see, check out the next video. If you like this video, please subscribe and like by clicking the little round button on the bottom right. To learn more about me or other guests on the show, go to joelrody.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. The handle is Joel Rody. If you haven't already read my book, Memoir of a Roadie, it's now available through Amazon and paperback Kindle or as an audiobook. I hope you enjoy the show.
The last time I saw Toby was about 3 to 5 years ago when he played in Boston at the Garden.
Oh, okay.
And he was mixing for Katy Perry.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear us, Toby?
Toby's,
yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
Toby's he doesn't really know it, but he's been one of my mentors since my very early days in the music business.
Oh, cool. 2 seconds, Mark. Hold the thought,
absolutely.
I guess is a better way to say it. But Toby, to turn on your camera, bottom left, there's a little camera icon.
Oh, there we go. Sorry
Cool.
about that.
Hey, there we go. Now we can see his reaction when you say all these nice things about him.
Well, it's true. I've been closet picking Toby's brains for years. And every time he would put up a new photo of a rig he was working on, I would spend days looking to see what he had in the racks, looking to see what board he was using. And then I'd have to look up the specs for that board to see what it had and why I'm trying to put together the pieces. Gee, I wonder why he picked this rack, or I wonder why he picked this board, or how come do these things actually all jive together? And so, yeah.
Oh, good. There you go, Toby. So I'll introduce you guys and then we can get going. Sorry, hold on 2 secs. My girlfriend gave me pizza.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Loadout food.
Oh, God. I don't like it. I'm so sick of pizza now. So whenever anybody has pizza, I'm like, oh, how could you not like pizza? It's an American. I'm like, you don't get it. Forget it. Don't. Anyway, Toby Francis is a sound guy. He's mixed Aerosmith, ZZ Top. I heard the bass player is a tough guy to deal with there. He's a very difficult. Kiss, Audioslave, Jane's Addiction, Guns N' Roses, Katy Perry, Kanye West, Travis Scott, Justin Bieber, and the Mars Volta, Ariana Grande, just to name a few. My second guest is Marc Bloom. His face has been seen in various roles in the industry. He's mixed bands such as Motörhead and the Blue Man Group. He was a forklift operator out of the old Foxboro Stadium for such bands as U2. He's now a production runner for a number of venues in Boston and Rhode Island. So my first question here is, Mark, why do you want to talk to either one of us jackasses? You have to deal with guys like us all the time. What the hell do you want to deal with us on your off hours?
It's pick and choose your battles.
Uh-huh.
I learned very young in the business, be nice to everybody, because the same people you meet on the way up, you're going to meet on the way down.
Yeah. Are we on the way down?
No, I'm in limbo right now. I'm caught between, do I just say, okay, it's time to retire?
Yeah.
Or do I say, okay, move south because living in Massachusetts is too damn cold, as Toby knows oh so well, which is why I think he beat feet out to the West Coast.
I live in the desert. Yeah.
Oh, do you?
As soon as the opportunity arose.
Yep.
And do I head south and find a venue that I can still, put in 20, 30 hours a week mixing bands and doing what I love to do in an industry that it's been very good to me. I hope I've given back to it in some shape, manner, or form.
Well, you've been a long time. I think it's safe to say what is it? 1982, I think you said you started?
I started in 1982 with a band called The Lines, which was a local Boston band. See, Toby's smiling because he knows the backstory to all of this.
Oh, okay.
And I started as their roadie.
It's a good band too.
And at the time, their manager was very, very influential in getting Aerosmith back together again for the Back in the Saddle tour, which they were rehearsing it's no longer in existence. It was a movie theater that we revamped to be an all-age dance club. The local kids would come around and is that Aerosmith, and me being in there watching the Lines band equipment, making sure nobody broke in the building, and Aerosmith. Oh no, it's an Aerosmith cover band. But if they bothered to look out behind the theater, they'd see the Lambo and the limo, and
that guy sure does look like Steven Tyler.
Yeah. So that was the beginning, and it was the School of Hard Knocks, and learning lighting, learning sound, learning stage production and management. For them, I went on doing stage manager and monitor engineer, and things just progressed from there. But like I said, it was the School of Hard Knocks, and at 50 years of age, I decided to go back to school to Emerson to get my degree in television and film production.
Oh, come on, the dark side.
Yeah, I hear from the vidiots, I hear from the sound.
So well.
I wanted to have the total package. I wanted to be that production manager that knew both sides of the coin.
Okay. Yeah, because we're pretty mean to film guys in general. I don't know how it is anymore, but when I was out there, we were pretty brutal.
Vidiots can go sit out in the parking lot and wait till we're done. We'll call them in when we need them.
Okay. You came back to the good side. You can. All right.
But they have their place, especially in these larger venues where the people sitting up in the really cheap seats that rattle the jewelry, as John Lennon would have put it, they want to be able to see the expression on the performance.
Yeah.
I know with Toby, the last time
the expressions are not always smiles.
I got to see Toby face to face, and the amount of production he was working on Katy Perry.
Yeah.
At the time. And I'm glad I got to spend the few minutes I did with him. But the amount of production that was put into that hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours, was incredible. And the only one that wasn't breaking a sweat was Toby Francis. Toby was ready to go to work. And I missed Toby by 24 hours. There was a movie that just came out, Don't Look Up. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Toby, of which a lot of friends picked my brains about the scene that you did the audio for, well, the monitors for her, for Ariana Grande. And it was 24 hours. I was on set on this production, working on this production in a video aspect, protecting people from COVID. And I missed Toby by 24 hours. He came in, boom, did his thing, and boom, right back to the West Coast.
Well, I came in quarantine for 8 days.
You did?
Yeah.
They made you quarantine?
Because I was around the talent. I had to quarantine for 8 days.
I couldn't believe the quarantine.
Every day. Well, you know what? No one got sick. They pulled it off. No one got sick. And because if you shut something like that down for 10 days because a principal's sick, it's a lot of money.
Heck yeah.
You know.
For real.
No, I tried to watch the movie, and I have a hard time watching movies. I fall asleep. Um, I've been that way for years. Even that movie, I fell asleep, and I wanted to hear because she was singing live. That was the whole point of me being there. They wanted her to sing live, and so she insisted that I come. And Andre Bauman, the playback guy, came, and we both sit in hotels for 8 days. They gave us separate rental cars. There was all these protocols. We had to get tested every day, and
Yeah.
sit in the car for 45 minutes till the results came back. And
Yeah.
and I was mixing monitors, which I don't normally do because Ari's normal monitor engineer did not want to fly up there during COVID.
I remember you taking some heat from some of the other engineers out there going, OMG, Toby's been reduced to a monitor engineer.
I'll do whatever they tell me. I'm so thrilled that anyone will hire me at my age to do anything. I'm
Okay, so to take a step back then, so how did you get going? What was your is your brother older or he's your younger brother, isn't he?
He's 2 years younger.
So what got
Yeah.
you going in the industry? It wasn't him then because you're older.
Okay. I started working for a local band in Lexington, Kentucky when I was 16 years old.
Oh, you were young.
Yeah, I
Band
needed a job.
security?
No, actually, we loaded the gear. And there was a local band that had a three-way stereo PA, which was rare in 1974. They had a Tascam studio console that they had adapted to go on the road. So they had extraordinary gear for that period. It was several years later and several bands later before I had that good gear again. But I started working for them, and one of the horn players, it was a 10-piece band. They had two lead singers, a rhythm section, and then a 4-piece horn section. And one of the horn players got a gig with the Crystals. It was a Phil Spector band, but it was 10, 12 years later. They were doing what they called the show band circuit or the dinner circuit. You would play dinner theaters. The band would play a dinner set, which was all like jazz. It was a badass band, actually. They were all killer players. So they do a jazz set. Then we would do the show set that the Crystals would come out and do their thing. And then we did a dance set after. And they would do 5 nights in a row. And then we'd pack up Sunday and move someplace else.
And you're 16 years old?
Well, I was 16 with the first band. When I started with the Crystals, I was 17.
Oh, so you were with it. Oh, so you went with the horn player onto the Crystals. So
yeah.
Were you hanging out with Phil Spector?
No, Phil Spector had really screwed them over viciously. What I like to say is before Phil was killing women, he was robbing women. He screwed them every way you could screw an artist. So here was 3 very bitter. Well, it's actually only one of the girls was original. The other 2 girls had been with the act for 6 or 8 years at that point. But Phil made all the money. You know, they were promised for years it was the big payday was coming, and it never came. And Dee Dee, I can't remember her last name. It was the second band I worked for. And I was a kid.
Yeah.
One of the girls kind of took me under her wing, and basically had kind of a very realistic but cynical view of the entertainment business. Because she had done movie stuff, she had done music, and really talented. Just that's where she had landed. So we were, and she liked to smoke pot, so we were pot smoking buddies. She was probably in her 40s, early 40s. That was a little puppy that followed her around, and that we went to Boston, and we played at the casino in Hampton Beach.
Club
And
Casino.
yeah, the club casino, which was my first time in New England, and I liked it. I met a girl up there. When I quit working for the band a year or so later, I moved up there, and there was tons of bands. The drinking age was still 18. We had all the different colleges in Boston. You had 8 or 10 clubs that had like really good bands playing original material that would, circle around. And then around Boston, you had like in Hampton Beach, you had the casino. In Rhode Island, you had the living room. In Boston,
had the Channel.
The Channel, the Paradise, the Rat, Bun Ratties.
Yep, Buns.
So there was a really strong music scene, and you could make a living working for local bands living there. And at that point,
So were you were commuting back to mom and dad's house every time?
Me?
Yeah, if you're
No.
doing 5 gigs a week with them, but you're still a kid, did you have your own place, or were you going back to your parents' place?
No, we were on the road. I left and did it for 2 years.
So you left high school early?
I graduated high school when I was 16.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Something
wanted
similar,
out.
Toby. Prior to the Lines, I worked with a 7-piece show band called Max Mob.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I cut my teeth on them and hung out with Saggy, who was the keyboard player, trumpet player,
Yep.
who went on to own Club Casino Hampton Beach.
Right.
And when I came in there with the Lines and saw Saggy, it was like old home week. And
yeah, Mike Greeley, their bass player, was a real good friend of mine. He's still a good friend of mine.
yeah, I know Mike.
Yeah.
And what's his name? Steve Harrington, who was their guitar player, who went on to do the guitar tracks for Ram Jam's Black Betty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool.
And
The sound guy, Rick Submergent, the guy that mixed Max Mob, was the first sound engineer I worked with that made it sound beyond what everybody else did. He had some really good gear. He really knew his craft. He helped me immensely raise my skill level. We're still friends too. I still talk to him all the time.
My awakening was a local band that I was mixing. The lead singer happened to beat the manager of the channel in pool once a week. And the payoff was we would get to open for national touring acts.
Oh.
And it was the first time that I'd ever seen a mixing console that size and a process rack with enough toys in there. And I forget who the very first, I want to say it was either Devo or Meatloaf that we were opening for. I was shitting my pants.
Very different kind of act.
Yeah, and the band was a cover band, but they had a couple of originals, and I made them sound good on their rehearsal system. And they went, "Yo, we want you, Mark." And I did the drum sounds. It took me about 20 minutes because I knew the drummer very well and knew what his kit was supposed to sound like. And the engineer for the opening act, I forget his name, God, came up to me.
Nobody cares about the sound guys. You see that?
He says, "How long have you been doing this?" And I went, "Not that long, and I've never gone to school for it, and I'm flying by the seat of my pants." And he looked at me and went, "Just keep doing what you're doing because you're learning." And that's when I started looking around at other local sound engineers like Toby. what's his name, from downstairs at the Middle East. We're having a brain fart, as we often do at our age.
Okay.
Just some really good engineers, including the sound engineer from the lines, who taught me some basics. We were also privileged to doing all the BCN free lunches at the Metro for WBCN. And I learned, okay, you come in at 6 o'clock in the morning, you set up really early, and then you break it down and go away and go do a lines gig. But it was that interim of little things like making sure the snake is running in the right direction.
It's important,
and,
huh?
Well, and pins to power and things of that nature, and all the things that you learn growing up in this industry that they'll teach you in school for a great deal of money.
Yeah.
And I'm a hands-on type of person. I learn by doing. So watching people wire racks, the process gear, setting up chains on the individual channels. It's just, at first it was mind-boggling. And then I kind of took a cue from Toby later on in life of just relax, take a deep breath. It'll all come together. So Toby.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's funny.
There you go.
No, I'm still learning. I approach this that I'm still learning. I try new shit all the time. I use different consoles all the time. I'm not married to any piece of gear or I mean, I've kind of got my way of doing things, but the gear is not that. I don't care that much about the microphones. I've got microphones that I would prefer to have, but if the monitor guy likes something else, we'll use that. I don't usually care that much. Capturing certain things, there's some stuff that works better. I'll suggest that. If nobody wants to do that, that's okay too.
I was going to ask you, do they let you, does the individual artist leave it up to you to pick like the desks and the speakers, the cabinets that you want to use, or?
Yeah.
Excellent.
No, I'll usually get a phone call. It starts with a stranger calling me or a friend calling and ask me if I'm interested in something. We'll poke around a little bit. If I'm going into an existing situation, I do it in a casual manner, almost to the point I think that there was, I worked for one of the ASOF companies for a while, and they would just send me on different stuff because I don't really care that much what type of music I'm mixing, what band it is, unless I don't like someone in that band, but there's only a couple people I don't really like. I mean, I do this for the money primarily. I enjoy the craft. If it's my favorite band in the world, 2 months later, it's not going to be.
Yeah.
I was in Home Depot last year, and in 40 minutes of being in there, every song they played on the PA, I had mixed live. And there was one I couldn't remember the band or the name of it till later that day. It hit me. It was that band Hoobastank. They had a song called "The Reason," which it's a great band. One of my favorite bands. I couldn't remember it, of all names. You think I'd remember that, but and I memorize things. I don't use notes. Most people I found use notes. It doesn't work well for me. It's I'm better if I just immerse myself in it and learn everything there is. The project I'm doing now, we're changing consoles. We started rehearsals a month ago, doing it one way, and we pulled all the gear back out. And one guy's keeping his desk, the others, and there's 4 mixers on this tour. There's it's an odd situation, and we're changing everything from top to bottom. I'm going to use an analog console, not a digital console. Which
I don't
haven't
like
done.
I don't like the digi consoles because it's too much search time for me looking for where everything is. All the little sub screens that come up and.
Well, I order my food off an app on my phone. If I go somewhere, I buy the plane ticket off an app. If I need to be taken somewhere, Uber takes me. Digital consoles is kind of like that. I know how to order Uber Eats because I get hungry a lot, so I've got that shit down. Some of the digital consoles I'm really fast on. Some of them I'm less fast. I've done shows on consoles that I'd never used before, just because it was there, or the situation. I went to visit the Justin Bieber tour in Tokyo. It was a totally unrelated thing, and Pooch got sick, couldn't do the show, and I had to mix his show, not knowing. I mean, I relied on others to make sure I had the right song up on the snapshots, and just kind of winged it, and everybody was surprisingly happy after. I didn't have time to get nervous. It happened so fast. I this weekend covered a private show for somebody who was a COVID. I've done that a few times now. Covered. I did a Miley Cyrus show for Paul Hager because of a COVID situation. You mentioned Devo earlier. I got to mix Devo this year, which
They're
was
such a fun band to work with.
It's probably the high point of the last 5 years for me. They were awesome. They couldn't have been nicer. They couldn't have been more fun. They still act like a new band, a young band. They bicker, and it was really an honor to be in the room with them while they did. I mean, when Paul called me, he goes, "What do you want to get paid?" And I go, "I don't care. I just want to do it."
Yeah, that's a good game.
But God, it was hard though. There were so many cues, so many echo cues you had to learn that are stuff that's parts of the songs. And I got to mix Body Count recently, which I love. Yeah. Just a fluke. Actually, the night I did Devo, I got to do Body Count too.
Wow. 2 shows in one night.
Yeah, two bands I wanted to mix in one night.
So they had on the same bill. It was Body Count and Devo.
It was Riot Fest.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So it's a radio show.
It's a big festival in Chicago. It's like 80,000, 90,000 people, multiple stages.
On your current project, Toby, will you be coming to Massachusetts?
We will. I believe we will be in Fenway Park this summer, late summer.
Excellent. I'm going to try and make sure I get over there. I have
incentive.
I'm ready for a production meeting, as we used to call them. And I have video of you, and I don't know if you were too much into the show. I sat there for a good hour, 45 minutes to an hour, watching you mix. And
which is kind of like watching paint dry.
Yeah, because I mean, I see some engineers, they're all over the desk, and you're just making very subtle light. And I don't know if the audience hears it. I know I'm very protective of my ears.
Yeah, me too.
And I totally understand it. I get it. But there are just very subtle nuances that you would hear in the instrumentation that Toby was making over that course of time. And it was just like, wow, I wouldn't have picked that up.
The new PAs, you hear subtleties that you never used to hear. I mean, I'm shocked that it gets better and better every new revision of like the physical design of the speakers, the components, the amplifiers, the control, and most of the tours I do or have done lately, with the exception of Kanye West, are very scripted and very it has to be a certain way. So I've programmed stuff in, and I use with pop shows a lot of snapshots. Excuse me. The show that Katy's doing in Vegas, there's I think around 250 snapshots, but some of them are used multiple times. I think there's around 500 event cues that happened. That shows to time code, so it kind of, for the most part, mixes itself. I'm going to go back and start the first week of the next run, and then I'm going to drop out of that and switch to this other thing I've been doing.
So I love it when you post pictures of you and Gwen on vacation. And various places you choose to vacation.
Was it? I think you were in Hawaii, right? I think I saw that too.
Yeah, we were in Hawaii till a few days ago, but that was a makeup trip. I'd gone in October, and Kanye became active while we were there, and I wasn't very attentive.
Oh, bummer when that happens.
So we booked makeup. We booked 2 more weeks to come back and do a do-over, and then my schedule changed and I couldn't go. Gwen went for 17 days. I think I was there for 8 days.
Yeah, a little bit of a break, hopefully.
Well, I have multiple clients, multiple entanglements, I like to call it.
You're a wanted man.
Very.
Well, and I work for Clair, and the company's very busy. It's expanding. There's a lot of stuff going on there. It's been, especially the LA shop has been the busiest in its history.
Is there any talk about demoting Frank Sgambellone yet, or
demoting him?
Yeah.
I really want to go see his show in Vegas, because we were using that Lisa. It's an immersive PA, and Frank just started using it. I used it.
What's his show in LA? I don't know. Who's he out with? I don't know.
He's doing Luke Bryan.
Oh, okay. He's done that before, I think.
He's done it for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 3 or 4 years though.
Yeah.
But they're doing a residency. Katy Perry's doing a residency. Carrie Underwood, Celine Dion was supposed to be part of it. I think she'll start next year. Katy's shows is amazing. It's visually, the whole thing is pretty spectacular. But the sound is mixed in an immersive format. So you have 7 front channels, 7 rear channels. It's just kind of like surround mixing for a live concert.
So to switch gears, to bring it back in the day, we were talking big shows. What are some of the small kooky venues that you've done through the years, each of you guys, that are memorable in being a nightmare or odd? Or so Cosmo Wilson brought up Russian Wedding. I believe it was Cosmo, and kooky stories. Do you have anything that comes to mind that are fun?
Go ahead, Toby.
Yeah, Aerosmith did the Marquis Club in London. We did a surprise show there with Jimmy Page sitting in for most of the show.
That's fun.
That was fun. Katy played at.
Did he leave the show because he didn't like it?
Who?
You said Jimmy Page watched most of the show, and I hope he didn't leave.
No, he played. He played for most of the show.
Oh, that's even cooler. That's really neat.
They said it was funny, and Steven Steven asked to do Immigrant Song, which the band kicked into. And Steven did not know the words. It was hilarious. I have
Big
a
shocker
tape.
there.
I have a tape of that somewhere. I've been looking for it lately. I have a DAT tape of that.
That's great.
The channel was fun to do shows in.
The channel
Back
was
then.
awesome for load in and load out.
The Paradise was a great place to see shows. It
Terrible
wasn't
load in.
a great place to do shows. I've got hummingbirds swarming around me here.
Bunratty's was a terrible load in.
Well, and it sounded horrible. That was my least favorite place to mix at. God, where else?
How about the Orpheum?
Well, the problem with the Orpheum was you couldn't really cover the upstairs very well with the PAs back then. Now with the newer stuff, you can, and I think they have a PA in there now, don't they?
I haven't been in there in a while, but I think they may have put in a different house system.
Yeah, it was according to what PA you had when you played there, or when we, like with Aerosmith, we were using Shoko's. The stuff before Prism is big, refrigerator sized boxes, and just to stack enough up and angle it back to hit the upstairs was difficult. I wasn't mixing back then. I was a guitar tech. I quit the first Joe Perry tour I did. Joe's guitar tech at the time was a guy named Fred Rothmel, and Fred got sick and had to go home, and Rick Submergent was the tour manager, and he was, a good sound man. We were talking about Max Mob. So for that show, we switched things around, and I covered the guitars and monitors, and Rick mixed front of house. And after the show, Joe thought it was better. He thought that his guitar, and Fred was more of a drug dealer than a guitar tech. And I think that when Fred left, things got better in that way too.
That's something that I've noticed lately here in Massachusetts, being a production runner, where they've relaxed the marijuana laws. It's invariable that at some point during the day, somebody along my path of production will pull me aside and go, "Hey, is there a dispensary around here? And do you have an MMJ card so you can go maybe pick me up something?"
Times have changed.
Yeah.
Yep.
My first answer to them is, well, where are you going to after you leave here? And if they tell me we're crossing the border into Canada, I say, I'm sorry, if I get you anything, it has to be gone before you leave the premises here tonight.
The Canadians don't care that much anymore.
No, but it gets me out of running around aimlessly looking for certain things that people want.
The truth comes out. The truth comes out.
I look at being a production.
Have they ever given you the weed back and said it's not good enough?
No, never.
Okay.
I look at being a production runner is tantamount to a treasure hunt. You're given a list of things that people want, and they wanted them yesterday. And if you don't come back, you're going to feel their wrath in full.
You know that Bloom is a nutrient company for weed, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And it doesn't really help when the sneakers that I'm wearing have these giant pot leaves on them that I have to buy online on Facebook. Just because they were made out of real leather and they were comfortable, and I approved their design.
It's fair to be made out of hemp.
It still goes back to, I think, me cutting my initial teeth about being fascinated with light and sound as a young child. My brother had a couple of garage bands, and just sitting there, I look back, sitting there looking at the little red LED on the Marshall amps, and then learning, okay, well, it's just a mishmash of sound.
Yeah.
And to differentiate, I wanted to be the one that controlled the highs, the mids, the lows, everything. I wasn't satisfied. And when I actually got out into the industry, like I said, with the lines, Max Mob, and started learning the hows, twos, and the whys, and then went back to school because it was audio and video production. It wasn't just all video. There was some music classes.
Mhm.
And one of my professors is part of Hey Audio student, and John Krivick. And he looked at me because he made us fill out cards saying, what do you do for a living? Why are you here? And he looked at my list of credentials and, why are you here? I said, because I know how things work, but I don't know why they work the way they do and what else can they work with well together. I need some information. So that was justifiable for letting me stay in class.
Yeah, good. Do you ever have any bands when you were a kid with your brother, Toby?
No, he had, I left early. When I left, he started working for the same band I had been working for.
Oh.
And then
You went on the road with the Crystals. Her name, by the way, it's Dee Dee Kenniebrew.
Oh, yeah.
So you left to go with her, and he took your place in her band, or the
Yeah,
one
and
you were in.
he was 2 years younger, so he was 15 when he started with them as well.
Did he
And
leave high school early too then? Or is
well, I
16 when you were
graduated
supposed to leave?
early. I think he quit, if I remember right. I can't remember.
Doesn't matter.
I think he quit though. And then he came to Boston after I'd lived up there for about 2 years. He moved up and actually lived with me for a while. And then he started working, I think, with the Stompers. It was one of the first bands he worked for up there. Yeah, and then he kind of made the rounds. And then he also worked with the Joe Perry Project. And then that led into Aerosmith. But right before the Aerosmith thing, like the reunion happened, he got a gig with Steve Vai.
Oh, that's a good one.
When Steve was in Alcatraz, which was one of the first things Steve did after he played with Zappa. And so he moved to LA, did that for a couple years, then came back with Aerosmith. He took my place when I moved out to mix front of house, which was a weird. We stopped the '86 tour early, and Nite Bob had been mixing that tour, and Ted Nugent was opening, and Nite Bob had stayed with Ted, and they had gone on and finished their U.S. tour, and I believe they had gone to Europe, and then Aerosmith decided to do 2 more shows, mainly to generate some money.
Was Rocco Reedy on that tour?
This was before Rocco. Rocco came in on permanent vacation. He did permanent vacation in Pump.
So he told me that they made everybody go through rehab on that tour. Everybody.
Yeah, not really. Well, the band employed, there was 4 of us that worked year round, and we had to do this codependency program. I mean, we were paid tour salary while we were there.
Yeah.
We were paid to go there, and we were told it was to help us. Tim Collins, who was managing them at the time, was very determined to clean them up. Or honestly, Tim saved their lives, some of them, in reality, because it was in '85, we were recording in the warehouse, and I thought Steven was overdosing. He may have been. He stopped breathing for a few minutes, minute and a half, enough that it scared the living daylights out of me.
Not bad.
I threatened to quit, if something didn't change good. I didn't like it. I was there with him alone, and I didn't know what to do. I had seen Joe overdose before, and it's a horrifying thing to see, to experience. And if you like the person, it's really heart-wrenching, because you're scared you're going to lose them. You don't know what to do.
Yeah.
It's a helpless feeling. Steven went into rehab right after, and we weren't getting anything done. We had been in there for 3 months, and we had nothing usable. Nothing came out of that. They were paranoid because they had been had bad business dealings with several record labels, management companies over the years. And I truly believe Tim was trying really hard to save them and get everybody wealthy again, because they weren't. When I started working for them, they were, I think Tom Hamilton's family has a lot of money, so he's always had money. The other guys were struggling. They hadn't had a hit in years. Joe had not made money outside of Aerosmith. Aerosmith had made very little money when Joe and Brad were gone. The band was put back together largely out of necessity and realization that was the best thing for everyone, because it did really well right away, and it wasn't very good. When we first started back, they were not. Everyone was still using. Some people were using stuff that made them go up, and some people used stuff that made them go down, which doesn't lend itself to a good sounding band when it happens like that.
Toby, did you mix for them on the 1982, the Back in the Saddle tour?
No, that was that was '84. That was Nite Bob.
Because that was the Lines had 4 shows up in New Hampshire. I believe it was the State Theater.
In Concord.
Yeah, and that's where I first met Bob. And he was like, "What do you do for the band?" I said, "I'm their stage manager, monitor engineer." "All right, nice to meet you. Bye."
Is that which Bob?
Nite Bob.
Oh,
Bob Dowd.
Yeah. Well, Bob Dowd was their tour manager. Nite Bob Sikowski is Nite Bob's real name.
Right.
Yeah, two polar opposites. Nite Bob's been in the industry since the early '70s. Worked for the New York Dolls, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I went to shows as a kid that Nite Bob mixed. It was an honor for me to work with him. And
I was lucky enough to be down on the field at Gillette for a Pink Floyd show, 94, 96, and saw 6 Fairlight computers. And I said, "Why?" And they said, "Because they remix it and get it out to where it's supposed to go when it's supposed to get there." And that was my rebuttal. So why 6 Fairlight computers? Why do you need that much computer power? I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Okay, so when I was gonna put together a podcast, I was at Buddy's house. Buddy's have kids now. I'm 45, And so his daughter's in 5th grade. She was with her little girlfriends. And collectively, the little girls came up with a question. And I found it to be a good one. My question to each of you is, when did you first feel famous? Now, if fame is not a road you choose to embark down, that's totally fine. When would be a moment in your career that you felt good about yourself? You felt you were on the right path. There was something that happened that made you smile ear to ear, some sort of catalyst. What moment would each of you choose?
I was working at what was then Grey Woods. It was a festival. The acts were Atari Teenage Riot, Wu-Tang Clan, and Rage Against the Machine.
Oh.
It was the show that almost didn't happen. Lead singer for Rage had tripped over a monitor the night before and fractured or broke his ankle. The entire band, everybody else made it to Massachusetts except for him. The show was it going to go on? Was it not going to go on? Meanwhile, there's 1,500 screaming fans that were let into the venue that will literally rage through every town they pass through if this show doesn't happen. My boss sent me out on stage with a vacuum cleaner that wasn't plugged in and said, vacuum the stage. And I went out there and pretended to do that. And at first the crowd went nuts. They were like, yeah, the show's gonna start. They're clearing all the crap off the stage.
Yeah.
And then I guess the people down front realized there was no cord on this vacuum cleaner and started
I'll make
pelting.
a Super Bowl joke right now, but I don't know.
Started pelting me with various objects.
Yeah,
I came
that's
off
not
the
funny.
stage. My boss looked at me and goes, well, here's your 15 seconds of fame. I went, sure. You send the Jewish kid out as the sacrificial lamb. But it was at that point that it was like, I don't care what I'm doing in this industry. It's not fame or fortune. Yeah, all these people see me up on this stage. I'm not the entertainer. I'm not the act. But it was that feeling of being part of something that big.
Yeah.
And just being a small cog in the wheel. That was the fame to me because I made the wheel, help make the wheel go round.
That I completely understand. I think I totally get you. I think that's cool. Did Rage go on?
The show started at, let's see, Wu-Tang took the stage at curfew at 11 p.m.
Oh,
Somewhere around that. Zach was finally brought in via state police escort from Logan Airport and ended up at the venue at midnight. And I don't recall the amount of fines that Great Woods had to pay to the town of Mansfield, but show went on. The show must go on.
that's a good story. Cool. What do you got for me, Toby?
Well, I don't think I'm famous. I think it's I'm well known in the circle of my peers I work with. I knew something was up when I opened a Facebook page and had 5,000 friends that are all sound engineers in about 3 months. So I figured that meant something. And I work all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, literally all the time. So I don't really have time to think about things like that much. I've had it pointed out. Ariana Grande, of all people, we were in Warner Brothers doing something, and we were in her trailer waiting to do whatever it was we were doing. And she pointed out that everywhere she goes, everyone knows me. And that helps her because they seem to try harder. So she goes, so obviously you've been nice to them when you were here before. And I said, well, I figured I'd be coming back and it would help to be nice. And when I did one of the Kanye It was one of the fashion things we did with Kanye, and I got photographed next to him by a bunch of people, and that started a bunch of.
No.
As my son came to see a Kanye show and brought two of his friends, and they freaked out when they saw me, and apparently I had been nicknamed the Gray Ghost.
Oh.
By the Kanye fans because they couldn't figure out. They were all guessing who I was, if I was a management guy um, or what. So it became this. I became a meme, and this whole. And I thought that was pretty
That's fun.
fucking funny. Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty neat. That's pretty random. I like it. The Gray Ghost. What is it? Well, you got the Silver
helps.
Ghost, the Rolls Royce, the Silver Ghost. So you Gray
Yeah.
Ghost, upper class stuff.
To me, if you're known, if the artists know you, if they seek you out, you get paid more money. You get treated better, right from the get go. The last 15, 18 years, it's pretty much been that,
Mm-hmm.
with a few exceptions. I like the people I'm working with here lately, from top to bottom. Um, they they let me smoke pot if I want to smoke pot. They don't say anything. I don't do it at inappropriate times, but if I'm learning the songs, I do it better if I'm stoned. Uh, and like I said, I don't do notes. I just immerse myself in it. Like at rehearsal now, the band plays for 2.5 hours, and then I stay for at least 5 hours and just play with it. And we're not playing the material from the show yet. I'm just getting used to how they zig and zag and how they function as a band. And they've given me plenty of time to do it, so I'm using that time as wisely as I can. The pop shows is more programming intensive. You're learning the material and then programming the show to happen a certain way. I like doing that, but it's boring once the tour starts.
Yeah.
After about 2 weeks, I don't. That's why I laughed when we talked about watching me work. I don't really do much. And if I use digital consoles, I make it so I only use the middle of the console. If they're like the SD7 has 3 bays, I only really use the middle. Some of them I'll use just the left side. I don't use the whole console. I usually program it so I can pull stuff up at wherever I'm sitting when I need it, and do that. I'm looking to do things more spontaneous now. That's why I like the Kanye stuff. It's no matter how much we rehearse it, it's totally different when the show starts. And you
I'm writing
really
notes as you say this, Toby.
How many years have you toured with him?
With Kanye?
Yeah.
Ooh. Since the Yeezus tour. I took over the Yeezus tour after the third show. They made a change. I went out there. Honestly, ML Procise was still alive, and at Clair, he called me. I was on a break with Matchbox 20, and I went. They weren't happy with how it sounded, so I went to straighten it out, which took a couple days. We had to physically alter things a bit, which we did, and I've been there mostly ever since. I don't always do the shows like the stuff he's doing on the 22nd of this month. I'm involved in it, but I'm not going to do the show.
Mm-hmm.
It basically comes down to availability, but he involves me in a lot of the stuff as a consultant, or a lot of it happens in a spontaneous manner.
So do you have acts that you'll take over another act because of the history that you have with them already?
Well, like with Kanye, ML was concerned with the company getting fired, and he asked me to try to save it while they looked for an engineer. after I fixed things, Kanye called me in the dressing room and thanked me for what I had done, took note of what I had done, laughed about it, was couldn't have been nicer, and then basically had one of his management guys. He told me to go with the manager, and he would compel me to stay, which he did. And then he's done. We've done a lot of stuff that's never been aired. We've done whole tour. We did one round of tour rehearsal. We scrapped the whole thing. We still did the tour. We just threw that $7 million set away and went in a different direction, which means that week was pretty busy. There's a core
What do they do
team.
with the set? Who knows?
You know, I went to Production Storage Group.
Yeah.
To pull, I had a console stored there, and I went to pull it out and saw some of the stuff from that event that's still stored there. Yeah, I tell you, it's amazing to see the amount of stuff that has been generated. Like with Katy Perry on the last tour, I believe there were 4 sets built. One we used for the main tour, one we used for the promo tour, and 2 we used for corporate shows and private shows. So we used each one of those sets like 3 or 4 times. And we had 4 different shows done according to which thing we were doing. We had to learn it from top to bottom. So we rehearsed for like 3 months. And then each time we would use a new set, we would do another rehearsal on that set to get used to whatever the elements are. She likes props. So there's usually tons of props and set pieces and moving set pieces. And that's more of a theater type production. The way she operates is very Broadway. Like that's another thing I try to do is however the artist works, I try to be a chameleon and blend in and do it however they're used to doing it. I don't like to play music through the PA during the day. The tours I'm on, we generally tune the PA really fast, like in 10 minutes or less, and then it's quiet all day. I don't like sound checks. I don't find them to be productive at all, especially on a pop tour. And it just throws the timing of the day off if we don't check. So if I have any say in it, I usually say after the first week or 2 that we suspend all of that stuff. The minute we start making it, it works the same. Basically, I'll change stuff for the sound check, and then the show starts. I put it exactly back where it had been. That's usually where we stop doing sound checks.
What's your go-to music for sound check?
Oh, for tuning the PA?
Yeah.
I don't tune the PA anymore. I have the systems engineer do it. And like Katy, not Katy, Ari's band liked the sound check, but I only went to sound check if she was there, which she doesn't like the sound check. So I didn't really participate. And where I work for Clair too, I have a pretty busy phone day, Monday through Friday. I'm usually seen pacing around the arena in a circle while setup is going on.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, I've been trying to I don't know what else to ask because I had a buddy who's trying to log on right now to surprise you, but he's on the phone with his boss. So let me see where he's at because I was like, I don't know what else to ask.
Toby, your daughter and my daughter are about the same age. I think we talked about that when you were here with Katy. And, and she's like, does Toby's daughter realize who her dad is? Because like when I ran production, I was security for Ed Sheeran when he came to Boston. I was his security driver. And Ed was sitting in the back seat and he wanted to grab my phone and FaceTime my daughter and blow her mind, but she was in school. So does she have any idea? I know your grandson doesn't yet. And
Actually, my grandson came to a show, a ZZ Top show, and saw Elwood play, and was really
wow.
kind of. And his dad's in a band too. My son's in a band, so my grandson's been around it his whole life, all 4 years of his.
Your son's in a
life.
band? Was it your son? You said?
Yeah, he's got a band called Soft Kill, SOFTKILL. It's a band from Portland, Oregon. It's doing really well. He actually did really well during the pandemic. He's kind of one
Great.
of the, he released a record.
When they get signed, are you going to go out and mix for him?
He doesn't want to get signed.
Really?
He was signed. He got out of the deal. That's why he's making money.
Yeah.
You don't make money with record deals anymore.
Nope, not anymore.
Yeah. Now he self-released his last record and sold, I think, 8,800 physical copies on vinyl.
Have you mixed his band?
I have. We did a live stream that I recorded and mixed that also was released as a record.
Must have been amazing.
Well, you know what was neat was when I mixed it, and I did it really fast. I only had 2 days to turn it around. And I did it in a hotel in Portland. Listening to the words, when I was cleaning the vocals up in Pro Tools, I really, for the first time, took the time to listen to the words, the meaning. I was blown away. It gave me I actually became a fan of his band, a true fan, by mixing it, where I had kind of been a fan just because he's my son.
Yeah.
Before. But no, he's got Rob Snaff produced his new record that's coming out next. He's getting hundreds of thousands of streams daily. Well, like I said, during the pandemic, he did better. He made more money than I did in 2020 and 21.
Yeah, good for him. It's a tough road. You know, with the book, it was people saying, did you get a publishing deal? And I didn't look. Then what are they going to do for you now? I mean, if you want to be proactive, you can get a lot of exposure yourself. So what's a record label going to do? What's a publishing company going to do?
The minute he took it all back, his merch sales quadrupled, which means he was making that money. Well, that means shenanigans were going on.
Something.
It doesn't just automatically skyrocket like that. And the same with, he got all of his masters back. He's releasing his back catalog. All that stuff sells well. He's living well off of his music finally. And my input mainly was just advising him what not to do, because I don't deal with record labels the way he does. I don't deal with the whole process that a young band would deal with. But being a Frank Zappa fan, I knew what Frank had done and how he had done it. So I just told him, do what Frank did. Start your own label, start your own merch company. And it all came together early 2020. And he's doing really well. And honestly, his stuff's awesome. I mean, he really, now that I've gone back and listened to I've taken the time to listen to all the stuff in detail. I'm blown away. He had a lot.
Feeling.
I respect him as an artist. Elwood and I, like when his last record came out, and Elwood called me and he goes, "Man, that little shit, he had this in him the whole time," And then we both went back and listened to the older stuff, and then had another talk about it. It's like, wow, he was so much deeper than we gave him credit for. Elwood was a big influence to him because he gave him his first guitar. He gave him his first amp. He always went out of his way to help him as he was figuring out what he wanted to do in music. And we both tried to get him to come on the road as a roadie, and he didn't want anything to do with it. He came out of the Mars Volta. He did about 3 months with the Mars Volta as a PA tech. Didn't much care for being on the road. Of course, when he's on stage, he'll go on the road, and that somehow that's okay. And I went to see him for the first time in 2017. He was playing in London, and I just happened to be in London and surprised him at the show. And it took him a minute to acknowledge. At first, he told me later, he goes, yeah, I looked out there and there's this old English dude that looked just like my dad. And then he goes, and then I think, wow, he's got a shirt just like my dad's shirt. But that was the night of the bombing, the Manchester bombing with Ari.
Oh,
Because after the show, we went out to eat. He came on stage at 10 o'clock, and we went to have fish and chips.
mm-hmm.
And during that dinner, I got the first call from Simon Thomas that a bomb had just gone off, and you could hear the pandemonium in the background. And we did a Katy Perry promo show the next day, and they had already decided, Scooter Braun decided to do a charity show to benefit the victims. And part of it was to get Ari. Ari just fell to pieces, as you could imagine.
Yeah.
And she flew back to Miami to sit in her room that she grew up in. She was like,
Got shaken up. Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty
well,
heavy.
well, 27 people that came to see her were killed. She felt horribly responsible for them being there, and it kind of tainted the whole dream she had of becoming who she's become. And the charity show gave her incentive to come back and do it, which I think if we hadn't, I don't think she necessarily would have come back at all.
Really?
Oh, yeah, it was. Well, the rehearsal day before the show, because I had left the tour early to start Katy's tour. And Simon Thomas had taken over for me. And when I saw her, she ran across the field and gave me a big hug and started crying, and just saying it's awful. And the senseless nature of it was hard for any of us to process.
Yeah.
That and all I could think of is I like mixing her show because she puts her audience in a trance. They are totally immersed in her voice, the tonality of her voice, like her true fans, which are young girls, and it's emotional for them. They have an emotional attachment to her. She has an emotional attachment to them. It's a really neat thing to be part of, to feel that energy when there's that much admiration in the air, and it's mutual. It's coming back from the stage. Katy's the same way. Katy's fans are absolutely in love with everything about her, and she with them. So there's a tight bond and connection there that I didn't get so much with the hard rock bands that I've worked for. Pop music's more interesting to mix often. Like there's usually twice as many inputs or more. There's a lot of little subtleties. There's an expectation. You're trying to match the quality of the record, the overall sound of the record. There's an attention for detail there from the fans. Everything has to be exactly right, or they will say something. They come up and thank me They call me Mister, which is
Oh yeah.
or Sir, but they're thankful for having the experience that they've had. Kanye stuff, the people leave there just when he's on, it's incredible the level of performance he can put on and what that does to his fan. I think he's truly one of the greatest living entertainers in the world when he's on,
Yeah.
when he's focused and I respect all of them. I like being part of them realizing their vision, playing a role in that. I like when they give me that role to play, and give me a little bit of direction. And then I'm usually pretty good at delivering whatever that is, because I've literally done this 5,000 times or more, probably 5,000-6,000 times. Well, yeah, I mean, I do well. You know what? Up until the last year, I did the fewest shows I've ever done. 2020 was a light year. 2019, I did 110 shows. Before that, it's usually about 200, 180 to 200 shows every year. And I usually
has Clair Brothers hit you up to say, can we clone you? We want like 50 Tobys.
Well, yeah, we've actually had that conversation. I've identified some people within the company's ranks that I've helped mentor that have become mixers that are one in particular is the guy that took over Kanye. He's going to be he will surpass me within the next couple of years, and he's like 35 years old. No, his skill level is phenomenal. He on the last Ari tour, I went to change something once, and he slapped my hand, and I looked at him, and he kind of gave me one of these. And then I thought about it. I went, you know what? He's right.
Wow. Well, that's a case of the teacher, the student surpassing the teacher.
Well, he's also been the systems engineer for some of the other, truly some of the best names, best mixers. So he's gained a little bit from everybody. I was the one that just helped him turn that into a mixing career, which is so far going great. There's others like I said, I'm working with to try to make as close to, because I'm 63.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm, will only be able to do this so much longer.
Yeah, but then you'll get to hang out in Hawaii more.
Well, that's the whole idea.
And Gwen would like to have you home, I'm sure, a lot more than you have been.
Well, she works a lot too. She's an accountant, a production accountant that does movies. So she's doing a Peter Pan movie now remotely. So she's also somebody that works all the time.
No.
And she's talked about maybe becoming a tour accountant, because it's very similar to what she's been doing. But I've been lucky enough to take her with me. Like the last Ari tour, they let me bring her for the whole tour.
Oh wow.
We just got married. I basically tried to get out of it, and they asked me why, and I go, I just
she
got
sleeps
married.
on the bus. You guys cruise on the bus, or?
Yeah, and we traveled separate. Well, Ari doesn't, like, we don't do overnighters.
Oh.
If we do an overnighter, it's in the same building.
Okay.
And we don't do more than 2 shows in a row ever. And so it's about 3 shows a week. And then every 2 weeks, she gives her voice 4 days off. So we went in Europe, we spent 22 days in Amsterdam, partly with the tour. And then like the 4-day off thing, we just went on our own to Amsterdam. We traveled mostly separately on that. We flew separately because of the schedule, or took trains. And Gwen had lived in Europe a couple times, so she's got a lot of friends there. So we did a lot of visiting and where I only do the show. So there's about 6 hours a week of work. So there was a lot of time to go exploring. And she took me to some cool places I'd never been to in Europe. And I took her to some of my favorite spots.
Very romantic, Toby.
And we did Travis Scott too. Travis let me bring her because I wasn't supposed to be there. Someone else was supposed to do the tour. I came out to rescue it and ended up staying. Pooch took it over, and then the two of us alternated throughout. But anytime I was there, Gwen would go with me, and she knows all of them, the whole entourage. I've taken her enough that she's got her own friends, like the Migos. I've done a bunch of one-offs with Quavo mainly, and their DJ Darrell, she's become friends with, and he taught her how to roll blunts.
That's great.
But I just got a message that my grandson is watching my podcast.
Oh, it wouldn't be this one because we're not live.
I guess no, I'm not saying some other.
Something else. How funny.
I think probably the one I did with Pooch and Tater.
I watched a little bit of it. Yeah.
But I guess he's discovered that I'm
big now. You wouldn't have worked with him because he did what you did. But did you ever know Davey Kirkwood?
I did know Davey, and I spent time with him on the festival circuit, like the European festival circuit. There'd be 10 or 12 bands, and we'd all get to know each other from hanging out. And I loved him. He was a delightful guy.
He was great. He was.
And we've lost so many, like Big Shirt. God, what was Shirt's real name? Dave.
I don't know him.
He makes Slipknot. An unbelievably good mixer. I think one of the best metal mixers going. I got to know him real well before he passed away. We've lost a lot. There's a lot of the older Trip Caliph has retired. Dave Cobb retired. I don't know how much longer Howard Page will go. I think Howard's in his mid-70s now and still mixing Sting. It's hard to let go of.
Yeah.
It's hard to know you're never going to have that feeling again, because it's like when the lights go out and the energy level rises and you push that first button, and then the energy level gets higher and higher, and it's hard to know that you're not going to feel that anymore. Yeah. Even if you've done it thousands of times, it's you. I've literally over 5,000 times, and I still get just as excited when the show starts as I ever did.
That's great. Well, guys, I really do appreciate your time. Thank you for it. Okay. And I look forward to talking to you guys both.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man, for sure. We'll do it again soon.
All right, cool.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe by clicking the round button on the bottom right. To learn more about me or the guests on the show, go to joelrohde.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. The handle's Joel Rohde. And don't forget, when you party like a rock star, don't be a dick.
It was usually
I look at pizza in